Right.
And how do you balance free speech and versus crazy stuff that, you know, got people not to take vaccines, for example?
Right, exactly.
And now the two...
You know, got people not to take vaccines, for example.
Right, exactly.
And now the two...
Welcome, everyone, to the Hurting Humanity channel. Bill Gates is making the rounds this week because, as most of you know, the United Nations are in New York City talking about how they can fully strip us of our rights and enslave us with things that we're supposed to look at as ways of bettering the future, right? The climate, curing all diseases that they create, artificial intelligence, and of course, most importantly, combating disinformation. So you can see that Bill's even got his little pin on for the 30 sustainable goals that the United Nations is trying to cram down everyone's throat to make it look like it's some type of PowerPoint presentation that we're all supposed to accept. And how dare we ask questions or tell people what it really is. And of course, you just heard Bill out of his own mouth. How do we balance free speech and crazy talk that actually saves so many people's lives, that they had to silence anybody out there who was actually trying to prevent the population from going down, right? And of course, it's amazing that they could still spew these things out in the open about crazy talk that prevented people from getting something put in their body that didn't cure them or prevent them from catching the disease in the first place. But all they need to say is that it's crazy talk, and all these people out there who are living in fantasy land who have, what do you call it, shart for brains, are walking around agreeing with the Bill Gateses of the world, right? It's incredible that they could bring these people out. And then, of course, when they bring them out on stage, it shows people applaud. When they bring them out on stage on the Today Show, as I'll show you some of these clips, the goons are just drooling. The Tavistock goons are just drooling over Bill, right? And I've used this comparison to try to make it make perfect sense to people out there who are not really awake yet. This would be the equivalent having Bill Gates go on these talk shows and applauding him and kissing his rear end, and the people giving him standing ovations when he says things about curing people and helping people and poverty and all this other stuff. This would be the equivalent of having Ted Bundy come out on stage and cracking jokes and everybody in the crowd laughing and standing and applauding when they already know that Ted Bundy is guilty of what he was guilty of, right? Because everybody out there should know what Bill is guilty of, but they still roll him out. He still smiles and he still continues to talk about his most pressing issues, right? There's 4 things that Bill is here to talk about. And if you pay attention to my content, you'll understand why these are the 4 things, because they all tie in together. Number 1, Bill wants to talk about health, but he's not really talking about health and curing diseases. He's talking about getting things inside of your body, telling you that it could prevent a disease or it could cure a disease. He doesn't tell you that him and the people that he works with and goes to these conventions and conspires with at the United Nations are the ones who are making you sick in the first place. So number 1 is getting that in your body. Number 2 is the climate. So connect the dots there and say to yourself, well, whoa, these are kind of extremely different issues. What does Bill know about computers? Then he knows about potions. Then he knows about climate. Well, because they're all going to tie together with your carbon footprint, right? So Bill's talking about climate. Number 3, artificial intelligence, where some people say, well, Bill did do Microsoft, so he should have a say in artificial intelligence. And of course, you'll hear some of his clips on artificial intelligence in a few minutes. But number 4, of course, is misinformation. Misinformation is big because if you connect the first 3 things, Bill has to make sure number 4 is in place. If you connect health/magic potions in the body, the climate, and artificial intelligence, well, it's important for Bill to have number 4 be misinformation, because they can't have you figuring out what Bill and all his friends are conspiring to do and are in the middle of doing. Because again, Bill would be held accountable for it, and the type of justice that would be held in this day and age with the things that these people have done and caused to so many people's lives, the chaos that they've caused, well, it wouldn't be much of a trial. So let me start by playing you some of these clips on misinformation and free speech, like you heard him say earlier, right? Free speech and crazy talk. He goes on to talk about Lady Gaga, which I thought was pretty incredible. Lady Gaga is in his new show, and Lady Gaga and him are talking about misinformation, and he actually says that who knows more about misinformation than Lady Gaga. So maybe they're following some small YouTubers out there who have exposed Lady Gaga, you know, in some of the bloodbaths she was taking at hotels while she was on tour, or of course her connection with her long lost aunt, spell casting, and maybe like even Marina Abramovich. I mean, that's just to name a few of the elements of Lady Barfbag that we can all connect to Aleister Crowley, Satanism, and the occult. So I don't know who he's referencing because I haven't seen too many people out there other than a couple big YouTubers or one specifically who has been thrown off the platform who is exposing Lady Gaga. But apparently Lady Gaga is subjected to misinformation as well, because calling her a Satanist when she flat out shows you that she's a Satanist, well, that's misinformation, right? Calling facts facts is misinformation.
We were just talking before we came on about the series. We've all watched it. It really is fascinating. And you take a unique approach. Malaria, eradicating malaria, misinformation, climate change, and you talk about ways perhaps that we can solve some of Earth's most daunting problems. How did you come up with the topics, and what was the impetus for the series?
Well, I'm very lucky I get to work on AI. I get to work on global health. Misinformation's the one where, you know, I've been a subject of misinformation. I talked with Lady Gaga, who's had it maybe even worse. So these are things where I'm lucky enough to get to talk to experts. I get asked about them a lot. And so when the opportunity to work with Morgan Neville and do a series came along, I said, yeah, this will be fun. And how do you balance free speech versus crazy stuff that, you know, got people not to take vaccines, for example.
Right, exactly.
And now the two.
Well, of course, Lady Gaga would know about misinformation, right? Because if Lady Gaga pretty much shows you openly that she worships Satan, I mean, I have quotes of Lady Gaga saying thanks and praise to Satan on national television.
Sometimes they don't want to, and they're, you know, Gaga, we can't get, you know, the frequency's weird, and, you know, it's sounding a little bit strange. And I'm like, if you don't get this right now, I swear to Lucifer, I'm gonna, you know, I get a little bit mad. I swear to Lucifer.
Even Lady Gaga's face looking like a pentagram or some type of reptilian. You know, there's nothing there that's a conspiracy or anything like that, only out of her own mouth. So if you call them out on what they claim to be and what they actually say, it's considered hate speech. Just like if you call somebody out who's trying to tell you to take something that doesn't make you immune or cured from something else, to call them dangerous, that's also considered hate speech and misinformation. So let me move on from Lady Barfbag, because Lady Barfbag's got enough attention. I have tons of videos on the website about Lady Barfbag. But then he goes on to talk about AI. And keep in mind when he talks about artificial intelligence, he talks about nobody wants to slow it down, he says. He says, well, you know, it's dangerous, it's going to kill us, but we need to be the first to get there. With America needs to beat China, we got to be the first. So while it might kill us, it might do all these bad things to us, nobody wants to slow it down. Actually, nobody's asking for it, and you're telling us that it's coming like a locomotive. You're not giving civilians the option to opt out. You're not giving civilians the option to even understand what it is first. You're just rushing it out so that when people realize what it is, it's too late, that you already have laws in place to protect AI from actual civilians, because the laws that are being put in are not to protect you from AI. It's the other way around. So they're going to force you into accepting it by saying, hey, look, AI's here. Look, it's going to make things better. It's going to make things quicker. Don't worry about everybody losing their jobs. Don't worry about AI having the ability to deep fake you and mimic your voice and frame people. Don't worry about any of that stuff. We got to get out quick with AI. We got to go. Like the Micro Machine Man. And then they just roll it out and everybody goes, what is AI? I don't even know what it is yet. What is it? Like you type something in, it gives you an answer? Oh no, it's way more advanced. It's demonic technology. So of course he's going to tell you that, well, they don't really want to slow down. You know, they want to speed it up. But people are not asking for AI. In fact, society's getting worse and worse and worse as more technology is rolled out and unleashed on the public. They just don't want you to realize that.
Interesting, because some of the experts in the episode said, we don't even know how it figures out what it does sometimes, which is kind of scary. So do you think companies that are creating these technologies are doing enough to safeguard it for us?
Well, there's certainly a lot of discussion about how should it be regulated, and the companies are saying yes. The government needs to understand our work and needs to look at the right regulations. At the same time, you know, people saying, okay, the U.S. wants to stay ahead. So whenever we talk about, oh, could we slow it down? They're like, well, don't slow it down yet.
Right.
So, and of course, as Bill continues on convincing us why we need AI without really convincing you, it's very important to note psychologically how these psychopaths, because that's what they are. You got to look at this as if you're watching a crime show, right? I mentioned Ted Bundy. You got to watch it as if you're watching Ted Bundy. You go, how did Ted Bundy seduce all these beautiful women, right? And they're like, well, Ted was charming, right? That's what we've always heard about Ted Bundy. Not the connections, of course, to the CIA and the Bundy bloodline, but we'll keep that for another day. You've always heard about Ted Bundy, right? He's charming. He's able to seduce all these beautiful women. And then, unfortunately, what happens to these women after Ted seduces them? Not good things, right? Well, these people are the same exact thing, because we all sit here and we go, how are people listening to these psychopaths and actually applauding them on top of it, which makes it all even crazy, right? Well, here's Bill tickling the ears, of course, of the Democrats, because those are the people, right? We'll call them Dems, Libs, commies. Those people who vote for Democrats, who go to the polls and think their vote counts, they all support people like Bill Gates. They think that they're smart. They listen to what they tell them to read. Of course, they're grooming them. We all look at it and say, I can't believe people listen to these psychopaths. But this is how Bill plays to them. Bill's going to talk about how we need to tax the rich more. Now, what Bill really means is that we need to get rid of the middle class, because communism doesn't work with the middle class. But Bill's going to pretend that he wants to pay more taxes. And on top of that, Bill's already done so much with philanthropy and donating money that Bill's such a good person. He wants to give more and more and more. And of course, one of my first videos I ever did, I talked about in secret societies, they teach philanthropy. They all learn about philanthropy, to be philanthropists, to be activists, to pretend in the public so people see you that they're very charitable. Because this automatically puts up a wall in your mind. You see these celebrities constantly talking about giving money to third world countries. So then you automatically think, wow, they're really nice people. Wow, Bill really cares so much about all these countries in poverty. He's got all this money, but he still cares. What a great guy. Of course, they mix in showing pictures of him with his grandchildren, and pray for those grandchildren, because God only knows what's happening at the Gates Foundation home, or wherever Bill is hiding out these days, pretty much underground, pretending he's out in an apartment somewhere in New York, and Seattle. But pray for the children, of course, that are, anybody who's got a connection to Bill Gates and to seeing him on the holidays. But Bill will pretend that he wants to tax the rich. He wants people who make a lot of money to be taxed, him and Bernie Sanders. And of course, they say, look, the governments need to tax the rich more. And really what could occur is these people could change their lifestyles. These people could actually get audited and show us what their money goes into, like why Bill's buying all this farmland, or why Bill's so obsessed with creating magic potions and also sucking the carbon out of the air. But they don't want you to think like that. So he just uses words like philanthropy, donating, and then how he wants to pay more taxes. And this is how someone like Ted Bundy is able to seduce women. And everybody goes, how is he able to do it? How did they not see through him? Well, apparently most people out there who are Democrats don't see through this guy. And when he says stuff like this is how they're able to lure people in. And keep in mind what he says as well in regards to the future and the future outbreaks, because the future outbreaks are coming.
Was asking you about your personal fortune, and it should be noted you have given away billions of dollars of your own wealth to advance causes in poor countries and promote public health here as well, gender equality. But does the senator have a point? I mean, do you think you have enough money, and should the government be able to say, enough, let's help redistribute some of that?
Yeah, if I was in charge of the tax system, I would have paid a lot more in taxes. I'd have about a third as much money as I have. Now, Bernie would go further. He would basically say that you can never be a billionaire, that at that point the government's going to take away 100%. And I'd be worried that, the distortions and the disincentive would go too far. Maybe I'm biased,
Right.
but I would collect a lot more from people like myself in order to reduce the deficit and have a more generous safety net.
So you feel like the ultra wealthy should be paying more?
Oh, we should pay more.
How much more?
The tax on labor and the tax on capital, there's always been this argument that do you need to treat capital specially? And I don't go along with that. I think, capital gains and ordinary income, we should tax at the same rate. So, and I'm also a big believer in the estate tax. Actually, my dad, who's deceased, and I did a lot of work saying, hey, this is how you prevent dynasties and encourage people to do more philanthropy. If you have slightly higher taxes, but you let people do philanthropy, that's really great.
The show also highlights the progress in fighting disease. That's certainly what grabbed my attention. Obviously, you've done so much work in the fight against malaria. It's been a long time cause for you. But speaking of health, I remember during COVID, you talked about how we have to be careful, and you worried about what would happen if we were to have another pandemic. Does that still rent space in your mind, or what do you think?
Yeah, sadly, when the pandemic ended, I thought, okay, now we're going to sit around and talk about what we did well and how we'll do better next time. But people are like, no, don't bring that up. It's so divisive in terms of, partisan views about what went well and what didn't, that we're not preparing ourselves for the next one. And I'm hopeful, as things calm down a little bit, people will go back and say, wait a minute, if we don't have good health systems in Africa, they can't catch these things early and stop them from going global. And of course, the cost was so gigantic that making sure you see it early and stop it is worth a lot.
Right. Prevent what you can. One of your episodes tackles climate change. You became a grandparent last year. We all have several kids between all of us. What kind of world do you think we are leaving for our kids? Did that kind of increase your sense of urgency to sort of fix some of the things?
Oh, definitely. My first grandchild is actually here in New York City, and couldn't be cuter. Just about
So
one or so
sweet.
now. Wow, that means the world, 50, 60 years ago will be the world that she lives in. And we're not making enough progress, and the damage kind of accumulates over time. So the need to innovate. I met a lot of young activists who are really harsh about, we're not doing enough. I found that, inspiring and motivating.
So there are people working to make change.
There are. There's almost too many causes right now. You've got wars, you've got interest payments. It's a time where, making sure we pick the right things and set our priorities will be challenging but important.
Bill Gates, we love that you sound hopeful. That makes us hopeful. Thank you. Thank you. Come back. Come back.
So, of course, at the end there, you heard Bill talk about how we have two options in the future. This is something that's been circulating out there that Bill's been talking about. Either a major war or another pandemic in the next 30 years. It's pretty incredible that he knows that this is going to occur, right? I mean, you couldn't actually fathom that these are the people starting the wars and starting the pandemic. That's conspiracy theory, right? I mean, why would Bill ever conspire? He's so obsessed with the word misinformation that he's beaten it into people's heads so much that they actually think there's such a thing as misinformation. It's called having a difference of opinion, right? Being misinformation would mean that what these people say is factual and we're being disproven, but it's actually the opposite way. These people are lying to you, we're presenting evidence, and all they do is just throw the word misinformation and fake news at us and then take us off of social media platforms for exposing who they are and what they're actually doing, right? So this is incredible. Bill says the number one thing that keeps him up at night, probably a mirror, but he says the number one thing keeps him up at night is if we avoid a big war, there will be another pandemic. And he says a lot of unrest is leading to a major war. Well, it's interesting being that you're the ones who are causing the unrest. You're the ones that locked everybody up. You're the ones who are telling us we could expect more in the future. And of course, that's all about what they need to get inside your body. And that's what Bill calls a conspiracy, right? So this is just Bill on the Today Show, and he's going to make his rounds this week. So I'll likely be covering him in more videos so you could see some of just the ridiculous stuff that he's saying. Because I guarantee everywhere he's interviewed, they'll gush over him. The people in the audience will stand and applaud. They don't even know why they're standing and applauding. They don't even know why. Just imagine when they figure out what this guy's that they're standing. Like I said, it's like if Dahmer or Bundy walked into the Tonight Show with Stephen Colbert, Jay Leno, David Letterman, and they came out on stage after they were convicted, right? Just imagine after Dahmer gets put in prison, you find out every horror thing that Dahmer did, right? Imagine all of a sudden you're watching Dave Letterman. You're expecting like Tom Cruise to come out and they're like, and our second guest tonight is Jeffrey Dahmer. Then imagine everybody in the crowd standing up and cheering. What would happen if you're at home? Would you take notice and be like, wait a minute, are they cheering him? And then he's sitting on the stage and he's cracking jokes and he's talking about people out there who say he's a bad guy, being hateful and spreading hate speech, because it's the equivalent. It's the same exact thing. And it shows you how the laugh box works, how hypnotism works. on these people. They are literally under hypnotism. They are living in a different reality. When they could bring Bill Gates out at this point, he could still call people, saying people are pushing misinformation for questioning him. When he's telling you that, oh man, all the damage that was done where people didn't get potion. You mean the same potion that didn't cure anybody and also didn't make people immune, which is the definition of what that's supposed to do while you're connected to the climate agenda, artificial intelligence. Yeah. Connect the dots, ladies and gentlemen. Bill will be all over the place while the UN is in town. And watch how he continues to somehow, obviously through spell casting and hypnotism, convinces the audience out there that Bill has everybody's best interest in mind. It's absolutely insane. But don't worry, folks. Bill's letting you know it could be a war or a pandemic in less than 30 years. You can count on it. Why? Well, because Bill and his buddies are going to conspire to produce it. That's why. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.